trailer in a very long time. It was a lot of fun. Melody, thank you for having me. This is a really cool setup that you guys have. I think it's awesome. I got a little bit of a download on your school. It's sort of like my motto. And I walked in and Melody pointed out the sign. I'm a dreamer. I live in the world of dreams. I create the dreams in my head, and then I write them down, and then, thank God, they get made into films. And I started thinking, like, really, how does it correlate? Because I've been so fortunate, but I think it's because I never give up. And I was telling Melody that I'm a faithful man. I believe in God. I pray every day. My prayer is a very simple mantra, and I ask the Lord to just open the doors that should be open for me. And if they're open, just illuminate that path so I can't step off of it and make a mistake, and shut the doors that should be shut. So when I get to that door and I can't believe I can't meet this director, I believe there's a reason for that. And I don't question it, and I back away and I put my energy into other things. I love stories. I have a twin brother, identical twin brother. We're writing partners together, called the Hayes Brothers is our moniker, and we focus in on true life stories because I love to focus in on how true life affects real characters and real people. This film, The Reaping, Hilary Swank's character is actually based on my aunt, who was a missionary in India, gave up 10 years of her life with her husband and her 3 kids to go open an orphanage in a very remote jungle part of that country. And she was so devoted to it, her own children had to go to boarding school so they could only see each other on holidays and stuff. And after 10 years of serving in India, on Easter Sunday, they were traveling to go back to Canada, their homeland. And my uncle, who was the pastor at the local church, left to return some books to a friend, and he never came back. And they later found him dead on the side of the road. And it amazed me that my aunt's faith never wavered after that. And she, in fact, felt okay because her husband always wanted to be with the Lord, and that's where he was at that point. So we took that character of my aunt and we flipped it. I don't know if any of you have seen this movie, but Hilary's character starts off as a missionary, suffers a big, big loss with her husband and her child. And when this movie opens, she's a miracle debunker. She's out there to prove that the Lord does not exist at all. And it isn't until she goes to Haven, where suddenly biblical events start happening and the supernatural exists, that she begins to kind of resurrect her faith, and then it's through her faith that she ends up, I don't want to give it away, spoiler alert, but sort of ends the movie in a really, really good way. Anyway, but I have to tell these guys earlier, I'm just so admirable that you guys are back in school. This is fantastic. School was really, really important to me. But I also believed in the fact that I had a vision when I was in high school. And my brother and I always wanted to be in the film business. We either wanted to write movies or be in movies or what have you. And at 16, I don't know why, no one said not to, and we wrote a movie. And we lived in a neighborhood where allegedly there was this country music singer that we had never met. His name was Hoyt Axton. And you guys see, not Goonies, what's it called? You'd recognize him in 2 seconds. He's not with us anymore, but he was a big actor, country music singer, and we just literally walked up to his house and banged on his door. He just had the courage to do it, I guess, and just said, "Can you read our screenplay?" And he went, "Yeah, of course I will." And he became a man that sort of opened up his world to us in a way that was just so positive and reassuring, and he confirmed, he goes, I loved your screenplay, and we ended up coming to Los Angeles with him just on a little trip and met some people that just made a difference. But when we were 16, I just remember watching, I'm dating myself, it was either Jaws or one of those movies, and I was just like, man, I want to somehow be in that world. And my brother and I were ruthless on how we were going to do that. And we realized, wow, you got to become a writer if you want to be a filmmaker, but you can't just be a regular writer. You have to write something that really sticks out for other people, because I mean, that movie cost about $60 million to make. And so your screenplay has to really, really stick out. So we found ourselves just not afraid of the work at all, because the dream was bigger than the work. And so we pushed through, and all I ever wanted to do was to make a movie with Steven Spielberg. I just thought that man is the king. I was telling Mel, and today I'm doing a movie with Steven Spielberg. So it's been one of those things of just like, yeah, it's a blessing, it's fantastic. So what I really encourage all of you guys to do, and it's just admirable that you're here, this is a huge step into a journey, right? And I really believe, you know, every journey takes its first step, but see an end to your journey on what your dreams are, what are your inspirations, your aspirations, what's the end goal? You don't even have to know it right now, but just know where I want to be, or you know, what rocks your world. And don't be afraid to dream it, believe in it, and create that path. And it hasn't been easy for me, I'm telling you, it hasn't been easy for me. There was a point in my career about 8 years ago when I was ready to walk away. I just wasn't getting hired, and there was a big writer's strike, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm gonna reinvent myself. And we have a mutual friend in the horse business, and I was about to approach him and say, how do I do this, you know? But I literally couldn't walk away from it. It was just in my ether and in my blood, and I love it so much. And success to me has always been when preparation meets opportunity. And so let's just pretend that whatever your dream is, just you be prepared for it. And the example for me as a screenwriter was, okay, you're in the elevator with Steven Spielberg, what's the 3-minute pitch when he finds out you're a screenwriter? Like, what do you want to do next? How do you want to download? You know, and you have this elevator ride where you have to just be on top of it. And if you weren't prepared for that, you would never be able to pull that off. So, you know, you're all different. You all have dreams. You all have things that you want to do, right? And just really, I think my brother and I are really testament to the fact of just never give up, never surrender kind of thing. And it's so easy to face an obstacle and go, oh, forget it. I don't believe in that. Most of the people I know that are successful, and that just doesn't mean financially, it just means spiritually, it just means personally, are people that just don't allow obstacles to turn them away. They find a way to get through them or over them or around them. So it's been fun. I was in Romania last year shooting a movie, and my brother and I are on this set. We're at Vlad Castle, which is Dracula's castle, and we're shooting a scene, and I'm going, who gets to do this? This is crazy. And I realize that's my career. And so I feel just blessed in so many ways. And I just had a great time doing it. It doesn't feel like work to me. So anyway, I really encourage all of you guys to do that, and to step into that world of challenging yourself and be in a world where good enough isn't. I don't believe in that. It'd be the best. Just don't be good enough, be the best. And you do that, and you stick out, and success will find you. But I was also telling Melody that, you know, I'm in a business that a lot of people have questions about, like, you know, what's it mean? How do you do this? And it's like meeting Hilary Swank. And we did this film. We started this film the day after her second Academy Award. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm gonna work with Hilary Swank, and she chose my movie as her next vehicle to star in. And I had all these preconceived notions about, oh, she must be like this, she must be like that. If you ever meet her, she's the most humble, down-to-earth, lovely person. I've been fortunate enough to work with, I wasn't credited, but I worked about 2 years on San Andreas, the movie San Andreas with Dwayne Johnson. He's another faith-driven man who is just an awesome guy, if you ever get a chance to meet him. Exactly what you see on screen is exactly who he is in person. It's the exact same thing. But I kind of wanted to open it up and see if anyone had any questions I could answer, and I'll be 100% honest with you in any way, but I'm just curious, does anyone have any questions about the film business, any of my movies? I'm happy to, yeah. Good.
What are the movies you've written so far?
Oh my God, it goes back a long way.
If you had to give out your top 3.
Conjuring 2, San Andreas, House of Wax, The Reaping, Whiteout, Go back to Disney Channel days, if any of you saw Horse Sense or Jumping Ship in the Disney Channel way back when. Those were big movies. We did a trilogy of films. You guys, it's beyond you guys. This is one last long. You had a question?
Yeah, what if you're not sure what you want to do in the movie industry, but you actually do want to do something in the industry, but you're not sure what? What would you recommend someone? What would you recommend as the first step?
Okay, that's a great question. If you want to get involved in the film industry, become an intern. Okay? And becoming an intern means you don't get paid, so it's hard because you got to make a living doing something else, but it allows you to put your foot in the door and show your value. And good interns get hired very, very quickly. They recognize the opportunity. So there, you can go to Warner Brothers. You know, there's employment offices in all these different areas that allow you to step in and either be an intern, or they're called PAs on sets, producers assistants, and those are actually paying jobs. But those don't necessarily mean you need any skills in that industry, but you're going getting coffees, you're standing at the door when we're filming and you're not allowing people to come onto the set and things like that. But yeah, if you're really interested, and you can individually, say you love, not that they would do this, but like Amblin, Steven Spielberg, you can reach out to human resources and literally apply for internships if they're available. I'm not sure, I've never done that, but I know like whenever I go into production companies and working with, I was telling Melody I'm doing a movie with Gore Verbinski. I don't know if you guys know him. He did The Ring, and he directed the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies. And he's an awesome guy, but I walked into his office and he had a number of interns because they're in pre-production on he's doing Gambit over at Fox, that Marvel thing. And they had a number of interns just running around doing stuff. So you might check, you have someone here, right, that helps with placement and things like that. So that might be a good resource to start and to just see. But if it's a great way to get like onto a movie set. My son was the same way. He was 18 when we were doing 19 when we were doing The Conjuring, and he said, "Dad, I think I want to work camera," and he wants to be a director, which he is now. But we got him a job as a non-paying job on the set of The Conjuring, and very quickly, within 4 days, they hired him and put him to work. But he realized very quickly, I don't want to be the dude carrying the cable behind the director. I want to be the director, you know, and that's what he's doing now. He's started doing music videos, and it's been a stepping stone.
Chad, would you talk a little bit about how your education prepared you for what you're doing now? And you were telling me about what your degrees are in.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you have a passion, you can't ignore the passion. That's just sort of your destiny, I think. I have a degree in economics from UCLA and a degree in psychology from UCLA. I never wrote a paper in college, but I did know that I wanted to be a screenwriter, and I had written screenplays up until that point. But what I realized in my economics and my psychology, especially psychology, is I learned about character and personality and things like that, which really filter into my work today. And the association in school with my friends and colleagues and professors, I still regurgitate through my work, basically, weird word, I know, but it really helped. It helped a lot in the placement of being able to, you gotta, when you watch these things, you gotta come up with all these characters and all these personalities, and they all have to be different, and they all have to stick out, and they all have to have beginnings, middles, and ends, and you gotta figure out how they all intertwine with each other. But it's observation. Education was really important to me. It was important to me that I had a degree, and in an essence, that if my dream didn't work out, I guess I had something to fall back on. But to be honest with you, I don't believe in plan Bs, I believe in plan As, because then you don't allow for failure. It's like, just do it, you have to do it. Figure it out, just find a way to do it. Does that help? Yeah? Anyone else? Yeah? Wait, let me get this guy back here. Hold on one second. Yeah?
Are you working with a gun?
No. That's very interesting. When
Repeat the question.
He said, am I working with The Nun, which is the spin-off from The Conjuring 2. There's been a million spin-offs from this franchise. It's actually, The Conjuring spawned a franchise at Warner Brothers that's exceeded $1 billion just from that industry. From the original film to the second film, to the Annabelle movies, to The Nun, to The Crooked Man, to Conjuring 3. But what happens is if you're a writer, and I've since changed this in my contract, when you write a movie for the studios, you don't own any of the rights to any of the characters. And they own the rights to them unless they're sequels. And so Warner Brothers, these are all prequels to the movie, so I don't benefit from them, but I've partaken in the creativeness of helping determine the characters and direction. And James Wan is the director and has a big say in all that stuff. Again, is a lovely guy, and he's another one. He just wasn't sure how it was going to work. He wasn't sure, and he had a writing partner, Leigh Whannell, who's an awesome guy as well, and they had this dream to make this crazy movie called Saw. And they were two Australian guys, and they couldn't get it made in Australia, and they said, forget it, let's just go to America and let's just make it happen. And it took a couple of years of beating around, finally got it into the right hands, and the rest is kind of history. That was a whole other franchise for him that turned into Insidious and things like that. Yes?
Have you ever partook in any acting yourself?
Yeah, I started as an actor at the same time as I was a writer. You guys won't know this either. I have an identical twin, and in those days of the 80s, my brother and I were the Doublemint twins for the chewing gum commercials, and so we did those. I ended up doing a handful of features. My brother was on a soap opera, and it got to a point where we had to make a choice because we both started getting busy in the acting world and the writing world. And so we made a choice one day for us both to just give up acting and just focus on writing, because I could control it. I could focus, I could write every day, and I would benefit from my own work instead of just sitting around waiting for the phone to ring. So, but I loved it. I really, really loved it. My son is shooting a music video this weekend that I actually have an acting role in, so I'm happy to be back at it.
Any openings for anybody that'd like to sign up?
Well, that's his gig. No, I don't know, to tell you the truth. I could find out and get back to Melody. He needs bodies, that's for sure. I'll do that. Anyone? Yeah? I can't hear you. Oh, you're gonna laugh. That's. She said, what inspired House of Wax? Who's seen House of Wax here? Anyone? Oh, you have? Oh, okay, awesome. Okay, so my brothers and I are doing a road trip driving up to Canada to meet at a family reunion. And my younger brother is driving, and he's a big camper, and I'm not a camper. I like a bed to sleep in at night, not the ground and all that. But we were driving, it was very late, and we were all tired, and so he goes, let's just pull off this fire trail and put our mats down, and we'll sleep for a few hours, and then we'll just keep driving. I was like, whatever. Okay, so we pull up this trail, we get to this little clearing, we pull out our beds, and he's got the headlights on in the car, put our mats down, and as soon as he turns the headlights of the car off, it was like, oh, and this horrible smell just like washed over us, and I was like, what the heck is that? And then it was gone, like that. And then a couple more times, the wind would shift and the smell, and I was just looking around and couldn't figure it out. In the middle of the night, and you guys have seen this movie because this is what we wrote in the film, is a truck wanders up the road where we were with its headlights on and parked about from this gentleman to me with the headlights right on us, and we're on the ground. And we just go, and I could tell there was a single guy in there, and he had a gun rack in the back of his truck with a gun in it. And I'm like, why, what is he doing? And we got up and said, who are you? What do you want? Like this. And he didn't do anything. He just kept staring. And then he put the car, or we walked toward him, and he put the truck in reverse, and he just slowly backed down that road. I was like, okay, so I'm not sleeping the rest of the night wondering if this is a killer or whatever. And then first light came, and I woke up, and I just started laughing. I couldn't believe what we had done. And we had literally put our mats on the ground about 10 feet away from a roadkill pit that was full of dead carcasses. Like deer and skunk and just all this stuff. And so obviously that dude was in the truck to come drop something off in the roadkill pit, but he was looking at us like, who are these dudes sleeping next to a roadkill pit? I mean, what is that all about? And so we just determined to put that in a movie one day. And so we were meeting with Joel Silver and what's her, Susan Downey, Robert Downey's wife, who I've done about 3 or 4 films with. And yeah, and we told her that opening and she goes, oh my God, that's so great. We have this new thing called Dark Castle and we're looking for movies and we own the title to House of Wax. And does that make any sense to you? Are you interested? And so we took that title and chose to not watch the film. I had never seen it because they've been trying to remake it for about 2 years. And my feeling is all these writers had gone and watched the movie and then tried to redo what Vincent Price did. And we just made up this whole new, entirely new concept just using the title. And I think that's why we got it, to tell you the truth. Sorry, roundabout story, but life is not stranger than fiction, or it is rather. Anyone else? Yeah.
I just have a question because a lot of these scary movies, like I have never seen, and I would feel uncomfortable showing to my daughter because I feel like it kind of glorifies like this evil spirit world. Then I'm just wondering how you reconcile that with your faith, or how are you looking at, you know, these are kind of supernatural, like do you add to, like what inspires you to do all the evil aspects of it?
It's a very good question, and I get asked this a lot as a believer. The truth is, my brother and I have been tagged as the genre writers that write films with redemption, where God wins at the end of the day. And by exposing evil, I can expose how you can conquer evil, you know? And in The Conjuring in particular, it's based on a true story. The lead characters are Ed and Lorraine Warren, whose only tool in the 70s was their faith. They didn't have any little gadgets like the plumbers do that seek out the ghosts and things like that. They had their faith. And they just believed that God would always help them. And they helped so many people throughout the years. And what I like about getting into these films is, yes, it's a redemption, but it's also a tool. And believe it or not, The Conjuring crossed over into the secular and non-secular worlds in such a huge way that it became the emphasis of Bible studies, believe it or not, because a lot of the theme of The Conjuring is based on Ephesians, and where, you know, God wins and you will face evil every day, but God will show you how to conquer. And so we really kind of seek out those stories. I have a movie on, it's on video on demand. It just came out, and it's called The Crucifixion. And it's based on a true story about a nun who became possessed by a demon. This is the film I did in Romania. And became possessed by a demon, and during an exorcism by the priest, depending on who you talk to, she died. And she either died by the priest being negligent, she died because of being given an insulin shot for no reason by an ambulance driver, or she died of complications in a hospital. It's a huge controversy over in Romania. So we chose to tell that story through, we made up a young character, Sophie Cookson, who is a journalist, whose mother died of cancer, but her mother was very religious and was willing to just give up. She said, I'm just ready to be cradled in the arms of the Lord, basically. And her daughter was really upset with her because she found a study her mom could participate in that had a 90% success rate, and her mother chose not to. And so ever since her mother passed, she's on this journey to prove that God doesn't exist, which is kind of a good theme for me because I've been witness to supernatural events, and when non-believers are with me and they see something supernatural, it changes their lives forever. So, like, no one here can tell me ghosts don't exist because I've seen a ghost and I've had an encounter with a ghost. Can't take that away from them. Yes?
So then what is the definition of a ghost if you believe in ghosts?
That's interesting. I just see them as spirits, you know, because, you know, they say ghosts don't exist except we have the Holy Spirit, you know? And so fundamentally, it's what you believe in. I mean, I don't know how to take that away from you. It wasn't an evil or dark encounter. In fact, it was quite the opposite. I've also had moments where I've had I was riding with my daughter on a bicycle around the San Francisco Bay, and she was riding next to me, and there was a whisper in my ear, and it said, "Do you want to know what heaven feels like?" And I went, "Yes, of course I do," to no one or nothing. And my entire body just got covered in this euphoria in such a way that I had to stop, and I couldn't function, I couldn't ride the bike. And my daughter was like, "Oh my God, Dad, are you okay?" And I went, yeah, just give me a second. It lasted for a very long time. And it was the most beautiful thing ever. The most beautiful thing I've ever felt in my entire life. And so, where did that come from? How? Why? I mean, who knows? Why was I given that? So, I don't know how to answer your question. There's just so many different takes on it. But my feeling is I'm just open to the willingness of God's guidance, and so I don't really judge one way or the other, because the encounter was the encounter. I can't deny it. You know. Anyone else? Yeah.
Can you explain more about that encounter?
The ghost encounter? Yeah. It's I was living in a house on Beverly Glen over by UCLA, going to college, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was in a bedroom that had big windows in it, and there was an old planter on the front of the windows, and I woke up to my dog kind of looking at something, and it was a silhouette of a very short, large man who's bald, sitting on the planter, just kind of staring at me. And again, I was like, "Intruder, who are you? What do you want? What do you want?" And it was just, and all I can remember is that he kept trying to cross his legs, and his legs were so large, he couldn't hold them across from each other. It was, very odd, and my dog wasn't growling or anything. And then that's really all I remember. And then I woke up in the morning, and I told my brother, I go, "God, I had this wild dream about this dude in my room, and all that, and this bald guy, and everything." And the house belonged to an old movie star named Corinne Calvet, who was like Marilyn Monroe days, but she was French. And the bus tours that go by the Hollywood homes of those people, they used to track down her, thinking she lived in our house, and would give us pictures of her and say, "No, I know she lives here. Can you please have her autograph these and send them?" And I was like, "She doesn't live here." And anyway, we kept throwing pictures into this box in case we ever ran into her with all these fans. A couple months after the encounter, we actually met her at a party down the street with friends. And we were on a staircase, and I was introduced to her, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have a lot of your pictures in a box at my house." And she was like, "Oh, you live in my old place that I built." And she goes, "Have you met Henry?" And I go, "I don't know Henry." "He's the ghost that lives in the house. He's bald, and he's really big and very, very short." I was like, "Oh my God." And that was enough for me. And it turned out she had sort of a relationship, not intimate relationship, but she saw him all the time in that place. Yeah, it was wild. It was really wild. Oh, very friendly. Yeah. Anyone else? You gotta have more questions. Yeah. Which is which? That I've ever seen?
Question?
He said, "What is the worst movie I've ever seen?" I don't ever want to say anything bad against filmmakers, but I just disliked tremendously the movie Mother. I don't know if you guys have seen that, the Jennifer Lawrence film that just came out. It was just, you can't kill babies in movies. Yeah. My least favorite film I worked on, of my movies?
Or any movie that you had any hand in.
Oh, God. I've had really great experiences in my films. There's a person that we worked with on The Conjuring, who I believe has elements of the Antichrist in him. He's just an evil person. And that bad experience continues today. I'm in a lawsuit. He's trying to sue me for something that just never even happened. And God, I'm trying to think. I don't know, because it's what you make of it, you know. And there's elements of being a writer early on in your career. For some reason, Hollywood doesn't want writers on sets, or directors don't want writers on sets. And it's because they don't want the writer coming up in front of the talent saying, "The director, you're ruining my movie, you know, what are you doing?" Or "What? Where'd that come from?" So a lot of times they're banned, and a lot of times you don't work on movies all the way through. You get started and they buy your draft, and then they hire this gentleman because he's a really good action writer and they feel like the script needs more action, or this gentleman is good at comedy and they bring on comedy and stuff like that. But I've never, I'm being really honest with you, I've never had like a, oh my God, I never want to go through that again. It's more with the people you work with. On one of the Disney films, I was working with the executive was a single woman with no children, and I had 2 kids that were, young teenagers, and she was trying to give me dialogue notes saying, well, kids just don't talk like that. And I go, I'm surrounded by kids that talk like this. And those are the kind of, that frustrates you sometimes, but it's great. Yeah?
What's your take on the situation with Harvey Weinstein?
Oh, that's a good question. It's
Repeat the question. For
what's my take on Harvey Weinstein? I've worked for that man. He never touched me though, just. He went after my brother for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's despicable, to be honest with you, and people that are in powerful positions like that have young people believing that I can advance your career if you just satisfy me is disgusting. And so it's a weird. I believe it's a bit of an illness and it's a power thing because I don't know, I feel horrible for any of those young women put in that position, and I am actually so happy what's happening today because I think it's about to just tip the canoe, and it will put people on warning. I was part of a situation where I was being represented at a big agency called William Morris Endeavor, and I had a very, very powerful agent there who was brought into human resources, not on a sexual level, but on the way he spoke to a woman at his workplace. And it turns out it was a little bit of a setup, but it was like just a heed to be so respectful every moment of every day in who you're talking to, and it doesn't mean that what you're saying is right. And he ended up getting fired from this agency because when you're a publicly held company, you can't hide stuff like that. When you're Harvey Weinstein, that's not a publicly traded company, you can get away with it because you're the Hitler of the group, and people are fearful of you. But anyone does anything inappropriate to any of you, just get it documented, because even if you don't go to the police right away, but you have it documented, or you've told a friend. All these women with Harvey Weinstein, unless they did a rape case or they told someone that could verify their story, those cases will never go to court. You have to have proof other than it's hearsay. So, yeah.
Have you worked with Harvey for a long time to meet Courtney Love?
Say that again?
Have you worked with Harvey for so long that you meet Courtney Love?
I've met her before, but it wasn't to deal with Harvey.
She's always she would always be with us.
You heard about her story, right?
Question?
Oh, he asked about Courtney Love and Harvey Weinstein. And, Courtney Love, and this is a very sad thing, is Courtney Love, you guys can look her up on YouTube, and she's on the red carpet with her daughter, and a news reporter is talking to her, and the news reporter says, do you have any advice for any of those young actresses out there? And she literally says, she goes, oh, I'm gonna get in trouble for this, yeah. She goes, yeah, if Harvey Weinstein invites you up to his room at the Four Seasons, run the other way. And that was 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And she was sort of shut down for saying that because he was such a powerful man. And that will not happen anymore. That's going to be. I'm sad it happened, but I'm glad it's all coming out now. To tell you the truth, and there's a lot of that in every business. You guys are going to see that. Well, you've seen it in the news guys and the just powerful people.
Kodak Black got sentenced for sexual assault.
What's that?
Kodak Black, I think she got sentenced. I'm not sure though, but Kodak Black Senior. No.
No, sorry.
You got that senior?
I'm old. No, I anyone that puts someone in a compromising position should just be put down. I think it's just not right. It's not right at all. How many of you in here want to be? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Have you met Stephen King?
Who?
Stephen King. Have you met Stephen King?
No, but I'm working.
I don't watch movies.
Stephen King.
Oh, Stephen King?
Is that who you're asking?
He said Stephen King.
Oh, yes. I have. He's an awesome guy. You guys know this guy. I'm working with Jordan Peele right now on a project. You guys know Jordan?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, Keenan Peele. Jordan's his associate. Yeah, Keenan's awesome. He's really, really fun. We're going out with a true story again, and this will rock everyone's world. But it's based on a man that was abducted by a UFO, and it completely just changed his life. And a very spiritual guy, and with a clear message. And it wasn't an evil thing. It turned out to be a good thing. But it sort of pulled in the world for me of NASA and the government and the church and the Catholic Church, and there's a whole astronomy section at the Vatican. I don't know if you knew this, Melody, but it's the information that we've found out about that is it's a big, strong belief that what's been happening in the past has been happening in the present. If you go back to the Vatican, you bring back up these paintings of the 1500s before people had any idea of what like a UFO was, and the word cloud derives from an old Jewish word which means object, strange object in the sky, and that's how the word cloud started coming together. But if you look at these old depictions, there are so many paintings of encounters and okay, yes, and it's like that. But my show is about why in the past with the Lady of Fatima and Lourdes, France, and those encounters, those children that had these angelic encounters were made into saints, and today they're just called wacky, if they have the same kind of encounters. So this is a show about the past becoming the present. Someone had a question back there. Yeah.
Don't they have a cave facility for that? Like cave drawings of UFOs?
Oh yeah, yeah. What he said is, don't they have drawings of UFOs? It's very interesting to me because in the show and in the research, there were 3 cave drawings in 3 different parts of the world in almost prehistoric times of the exact same spaceship. Same drawing, same everything, all carbon dated and all that. And these are people who weren't able to communicate with one another or talk to one another. And I don't know what it means, but I have an imagination. It's fun to think about it, But it's, again, when you can do things like in historical fact and research them on the internet, it's the other reason we like to do films that are based in truth, because my audience is you guys, and you guys can look it up on the internet and go, whoa, that really happened. Like in The Conjuring, there's a lot of information on that. Yes, sir.
Since you do so many horror-related films, what scares you?
He asked, what scares me? Wow. I got completely freaked out one time. My brother and I wrote a film for New Line that we were going to direct, and we went to India to what's called Scout, and you go check out locations where you're going to film and stuff like that. And our Indian producer said, "Oh, do you want to see an exorcism?" And I was like, "Sure, let's go see one." And there's a place in India. It's called Bukrata, and it's just a dirt road town. It's very, very small, and there's a temple there that people mecca to cure illnesses, and one of the illnesses is an exorcism. The families will save their entire year's wealth to go to this place and have whatever it is removed, a cancer or exorcism or whatever. And in India, there's a belief that of jinns, and think genie in a bottle, but like a demon in a bottle. They're just scary things. And they manifest themselves into black dogs. Like no one in India will actually own a black dog. And there's very few of them, but they are known to be like guardians kind of thing. So we were led into this temple, and my brother and I walked by this guy, and it was probably 105 degrees. It was sweltering hot. And there was a gentleman that was handcuffed to a wall, and he had the blackest, soulless eyes I've ever seen in my entire life. And when I walked by him, his eyes just kind of followed us like this, and it just really creeped me out. Then we went up these stairs to go into the temple, and there was like 4 black dogs just loitering at the top. And it's like all this step by step, it was getting worse and worse. And then we went inside. There's probably 100 people in this auditorium with a cement floor, waiting to go into the Bopa to, be healed, yes. And there was a young girl, maybe 9 years old, that the Indians believe if you're possessed by a jinn, you physically can't get harmed if the jinn is in control of your body. Like you won't bleed, you won't, it's their belief. And we watched a girl, about 9 years old, literally standing on the floor and just doing backflips just by herself, but landing on her back and smacking her head on the floor. We saw her do it 6 or 7 times. And her family's just sitting around and she's doing this, and then she laughed and she got up and did it again. No blood, nothing, just smack, smack, smack. And then there was this other woman who was, and that was really disturbing for me. There was another woman, but it doesn't matter. But at the end, when we walked out, there was an extraordinarily beautiful Indian woman. She was dressed in all white, and she was just gracefully poised against a corner, but just sort of like she was looking. And it was so disturbing to me because she just fixated her eyes on me, and her eyes seemed otherworldly to me. And I felt like I was in some way being victimized, you know, and I didn't know, and it made me want to leave, like to just get out of there. Like someone mentioned, the evil, and I just felt the presence of evil at that moment. And it made me realize it doesn't matter what you look like or who you are, male, female, whatever age, you know, if it gets within you, it gets within you, and then it's bad news. But the good thing of it, and this is why I believe in exorcisms, because mental illness does not just go away. But with God and God's intervention, like the gentleman with the black eyes at the very beginning, my brother and I walked around because we were having a tea like an hour later across the street, and he walked out of there and he was a different person. He was just like, this is the guy that was handcuffed against the wall. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I will tell you a funny thing is, one of these bopas said to my brother and I, he goes, would you like to be demonized? We could put a low-level demon in you so you know what it's like to be possessed. And I was like, hell no, not gonna do that. But the fact that he felt that he could, and then they also believe that the livestock can be possessed as well. And if a livestock is possessed, you can take a bit of the blood from that, and they believe if you put the blood of a demonized animal right here in your third eye, that you will look into the world of the jinn. And that's sort of what my movie is about, like who sees that. And it hasn't been made yet, but yeah.
And then in the Bible, it has Jesus goes to the village and he sees this guy, this demons, and this guy. And God, when Jesus came, the demons told him this guy can go into the sheep, but wouldn't have to go back in hell.
He is, help me out here, Melody. He was asking about Jesus and the demons, and in Scripture, yes, they went into pigs. Yes.
They call them legions. They said they were legions.
Legions of demons.
So I think what you're talking about, George, is what he's talking about too, that kind of thing is real, but in our culture, we tend to say, oh, that's just crazy talk.
Yeah, mental illness.
But there's historical things, there's biblical things, and there's things in modern history that show that the spirit realm is true, and that's why we say get good with God, because you know that's where you want to be and that's where you're safe.
It's like, it's hard to talk religion because it's such a personal thing for me, but I have literally prayed for things that have come true. I prayed off illness and friends. I have, you know, the producer Mark Burnett, you guys know him, right? He does Survivor, he does The Voice, he's got like 19 shows, The Bible, AD, and all that. And he's married to Roma Downey, who is an actress on a show called Touched by an Angel. They were filming AD in Italy, and his youngest son, Cameron, 17 years old, collapsed on the set. And they thought, oh, dehydration, whatever. It turned out he had a potentially inoperable brain tumor right on the front lobe of his head. And so he was emergency evac back to California from Italy. And they just put out this, they basically were told he's gonna be a vegetable, and you gotta make a special room. So they live in Malibu, and they changed his whole room while he was in the hospital so he could sleep on a gurney and have wheelchair access out to a deck. And they changed their whole room. And meanwhile, but they just didn't give up their faith. And they put out a big prayer chain, and people were just praying. And literally one day, Cameron just kind of opened his eyes, and they checked on his tumor and it was shrinking, and they didn't know why it was shrinking, and he never had to go sleep in a gurney again, and he's now going to USC Film School. He's 19 years old. So where's that come from? I mean, you guys decide. It's got to be up to you. Anyone else? Yeah.
What inspires your creative writing?
It's I like taking what he said. What inspires my creative writing? I like taking what if scenarios, which I think is really fun. You know, put yourself in a situation or position, and then kind of figure out what you would do from that. We're doing. I don't know, I was challenged. I wrote, it hasn't been filmed yet, but anyone seen The Omen here? The old Gregory Peck movie? Okay. So my brother and I just finished writing the prequel to that. So we get to tell you actually where Damien came from, because it was never in the movie. He was just adopted by the wrong family, or the right family. And I love that challenge. That was presented to us at a meeting on the studio lot. It's like, hey, we're trying to do a prequel to The Omen, so what does that mean? And so I watched that movie, and I was like, okay, well, where did he come from? And what is the twist for that? And how do you biblically support that? And I mean, that was one we used. My kids came to my brother and I one day and they said, how come you don't write movies that we can go see? Because they're all rated R, PG, or whatever. So then we were challenged to go write movies for the Disney Channel so my kids could watch the films that we were doing. And that was fun, and that was just the idea of I like riding horses, and I like being out of doors, and I find the world between Montana and Beverly Hills to be so interesting because the people are so different. So what if we took two cousins, one from Montana and one from Beverly Hills, and we forced the Beverly Hills to move to Montana? How would that affect him, you know? And so we got the Lawrence brothers, Joey Lawrence and his brother, to do that film, and it ended up being a huge hit for Disney. That they wrote a sequel where we had all three Lawrence brothers in that, and it was called Shipwrecked, and we went down to Australia and shot that one down there. But that just came from, okay, the success of the first one, how do we change it up now that we have the characters that are the same, that we get to just put them in different environments? Or sometimes I'm moved by things that are just so beautiful. It's like, how do I put that into a film? I just came off a river rafting trip in Idaho. That was just so much fun, and I'm just really inspired to do some sort of a river rafting story. I was on the river with 19 people, half I knew, half I didn't, and faced with class 4 rapids, and my wife was with me, who was terrified of rapids, and then came out just wanting to do it again, you know? I don't know, it's like, listen, I have a journal next to my bed, and sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with just these thoughts, and I just write them down. And I go, I don't know what it means, but they're being given to me somehow. And so, you know, it could turn into something else. Yeah?
Would you ever go back to that Indian temple?
I don't necessarily need to, so probably not. No. It freaked me out, dude. It was just like, it was so trippy. And it was, the fact it was really hot, really dusty, I felt like we were already in a movie, you know, like someone was shooting something, because, you know, the sun's coming in and you see the dust through the shutters, and it's just, everything in India, it's a beautiful place, but it just has too much of everything. Too many people, too many animals, too many cars, and like the smells when you get off in Delhi, you're off the airport, you are overwhelmed with these smells that we've never smelled before. And you're not allowed to drive a car there, so if you need to go anywhere or you hire a car, it comes with a driver. And so when you walk out of the airport, there's 1,000 people holding up nameplates to go take you somewhere. It was just a great experience, you know? That'll end up somewhere. Anyone else? Yeah?
One more question.
Sure.
Are you taking the idea to create your movies from directors like James Cameron, like the creator of the LA movies and Lord of the Rings? I don't remember his name, Phil Silver. Have you ever like thought of creating an idea of how they make this movie and you implementing your movie?
I'm trying to understand your question. So you're asking me if a director or someone like that has come to us to discuss an idea?
No, do you taking ideas from them?
Oh, from them.
Like, you know, like the LA movies that they are like.
Okay, I love James Cameron. So yeah, he has a huge influence. Oh, you know what you guys can do that's really kind of fun is you can go to Google free screenplays, and look up your favorite movie and read the screenplay. And then you'll see, wow, how much of it actually ended up on the film compared to the director. And the better written ones, like James Cameron, is a phenomenal writer. And exactly what's on the script is exactly what's in the movie. And it's just fun, like read Titanic. That's just crazy, but it's exactly the same. I was telling Melody that, I think I mentioned it, where a guy came to Carrie and I, my brother and I, and he's a director, I think I mentioned this, Igor Verbinski, did I say that? And he had an idea. So he came to my brother and I because he was a fan of our films, and he had read a script that we're doing at DreamWorks now, Amblin. And he shared his idea of the story, and now I'm gonna write that for 20th Century Fox. And he'll have a lot to say, but the great news about that is he's gonna direct it, so I don't have to write a movie and then have a director come on board and want to change my film because I've already worked with him to do it, which happens a lot. Directors come on board, they want to bring on another writer, do their own little take on it. But hugely, Alfred Hitchcock, hugely inspired by him, James Cameron, hugely by him. And I love, a lot of our films have female protagonists in it, and just I've had great female role models. My mother and my sister are amazing women that have influenced my life. So I like to write movies that have female leads. I loved Linda Hamilton, in Terminator, and Sigourney Weaver in the Alien films, and I think dudes like to watch women kick ass, so it's like fun, Yeah. Oh. Anyone else? Yeah. One more question. No. Well, you guys, it was really a pleasure. I hope I answered or shared a little bit of something that'll make sense to you. God bless you all.